let's talk a little Dodgers baseball here with Javi. He says, so the Dodgers got Snell, Glasnow, and Ohtani all coming back. Plus, they're thinking about trading for Arenado.
Well, Arenado's name is out there. St. Louis is shopping him, looking for pitching. The Padres have talked to him, but how do the Padres take on Arenado's contract when they have a mandate? They got to move $40 million off the potential payroll, which means guys are going out the door. They're not talking to Arenado as much as they're talking to Willy Adames. They're talking to Adames about being their shortstop. Now, Adames is getting a lot of play, too. He's the Milwaukee power hitting shortstop. And, of course, the Dodgers are still in on Sasaki. I do not think the Dodgers are anywhere near the finalist group for Juan Soto. But their payroll, as of Sunday, their payroll is now at $309 million. $309 million. Money is no object at Dodger Stadium.
That's almost double the allowance that A.J. Preller gets.
Just absolutely stunning. And they're willing to go farther. And for all the money they've spent and the roster, Javi, of pitchers they don't have an outfield yet. They've yet to re-sign Teoscar Hernandez, and of course he's asking for mega money after the 33 home run season. So going to be interesting to see how high that payroll is going to go, or might they be shedding some people here?
Well, I'm a little confused about the Adames deal because they just signed Tommy Edman to that extension. So now are they thinking Edman's going to play center? And if he is going to play center, then what does that do to Andy Pages? Are they going to maybe move him to the left, or is he not really ready for primetime?
I don't know that he's ready for primetime full-time, but his name's also surfaced in the potential of the White Sox trade for Garrett Crochet. Dodgers are in the running for that, in addition to Adames, in addition to Sasaki.
A lot of chips on the table here.
Oh, yeah. They're moving a lot of things right. Don't miss the show next week at the Winter Baseball Meetings in Dallas. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to be covering and talking. Javi, thanks for joining us in Fans Forum.
Okay, let's go to Cal. And he goes, afternoon, gents. Hope it was a great Thanksgiving. Just want to salute the University of San Diego men's soccer team on a phenomenal season that ended last night in a heartbreaking overtime loss. Over 3,000 fans came out, too.
And that was preceded by USD going across the country and beating Duke in the first round of the NCAA playoffs. So what a great accomplishment. It was kind of tough to lose in this overtime rules, which are different than the professional rules. In professional, you play a full overtime period. If you score a goal, fine, you got to play the full, I think it's 30 minutes in overtime. But in college soccer, it's sudden death, and it became sudden death on a late call. It became a penalty shot. But hey, great program. I mean, what USD's accomplished. Didn't get a lot of notoriety, doesn't get a lot of coverage, etc. But that was phenomenal. For USD, tiny USD, the school on the hill, to go to Tobacco Road and beat Duke. You know how impressive that is?
Well, and then they lost to Dartmouth, right? So isn't it kind of neat where you see schools that are not necessarily in football power conferences have success in soccer?
Oh, yeah.
So, whether it's USD or Dartmouth or whatever, and beating Duke, that's a big accomplishment in soccer.
Hell yes. And who's the coach at USD? Brian Quinn, legendary San Diego soccer star, Northern Ireland guy.
Yeah.
Oh, he's one of the neat people I know.
Good for those guys. Toreros.
Good to have you on board, Callum. Thanks for joining us, and a salute to the Toreros.
Okay, let's go Mike here. Some Dodger talking. A dude shouting at us in all caps. Dodgers doing big moves. I expect Sasaki to be a Dodger and Rookie of the Year, and Murakami next year. Dodgers team, Japan. Shout out to the LA Galaxy. Let's go LA versus New York round 2.
That's amazing. He writes all that sales pitch stuff to two guys who are based in San Diego. I guess we're making inroads into the Los Angeles market. Now, the Dodgers historically are just, I think, one of the great organizations of all time. I didn't get the memo about the dress code. If I had known you were going to wear that, I would have gone into my closet and gotten that Dodger hoodie, and then we could have argued with each other while we were properly dressed. But
Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Yeah. Dodgers have done well, and obviously it's the number 2 market in the country. But think about that, $309 million payroll, and I've yet to re-sign Teoscar Hernandez, and they're going to sign Sasaki, and they're part of the bidding process for Garrett Crochet in Chicago. I guess, John, the bigger question to me, the big markets can spend what the big markets create in terms of revenue. But is it good for Major League Baseball if we have the Yankees and the Mets and the Dodgers and maybe the Red Sox with mega contracts, mega payrolls? We have 5 great teams and 25 teams that can't compete. Is that good for the overall picture of the game?
Well, no, I mean, obviously you like to have some degree of parity so that's competitive. But even in the NFL where they have revenue sharing, the Raiders have been terrible for 3 decades. So it's no guarantee that it's going to work out that way. But, you've made this point before. In order for the scales to balance, the Yankees and Dodgers and Red Sox are going to have to be willing to give up some of their revenue. And that's probably not going to happen.
Concur with you. And the other factor, and I'll maintain this, and it'll be another argument for another time, but hard luxury tax or hard salary cap, it works in all the other sports, and a floor to spending. There has to be a floor to spending. They have it in the NFL. They have it in the NBA. They have it in the National Hockey League. And that's why there's much, much more competitive balance, because I just don't think it's good that we just have 5 mega teams in baseball and the other 25 don't count for very much except they're playing games in front of their home fans.
Yeah, but you know what? A lot of the small market teams make runs every once in a while. The Padres, the Braves isn't really a small market team, but the Brewers are in the playoffs. It's good when we see some of these other teams kind of come forward and make a challenge.
Mike, sum total, don't go anywhere. Make sure you're with us next week. Here comes the winter baseball meetings, and we will cover them. Go ahead, John.
Okay, this is David Ramos kind of taking a shot at our sponsor, Dixieline Lumber. And he goes, "Power tools is a stocking stuffer. Good one." I think I've seen stockings that are really big. You could probably fit a cordless power drill into one of those.
You could just put it under the tree.
Yeah, you could do that too. Especially if you're getting like some sort of a power saw or something, you probably won't fit that into a
See, we got this beautiful tree we just put up in John's studio, and when I get here just before Christmas, I would expect maybe 4 or 5 of those Christmas cards kind of stapled to the tree, the ones that have the $100 bills in each of them you're going to give me.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, let's
Thanks,
keep
David.
moving. All right, this is from Greg. He goes, "Hey Lee, looking good." You got a big fan club out there. Okay,
a lot of people need friends.
Okay, 4RXLA. Major League Baseball needs to do something about these mega contracts with all the deferred money. It's going to ruin baseball.
Well, it's not going to ruin it because that money comes due. You got to pay that money. And there will be luxury tax implications when you actually pay that money going forward. It's not illegal. The union has signed off on it. I mean, is it creative bookkeeping and financing, John? Yeah. What the Dodgers did with Ohtani, nobody had really considered. Now, there have been deferred money contracts. I recall way back 15 years ago when the Mets did this deferred money deal with Bobby Bonilla, and the New York media were aghast. You're going to have to pay him $1.9 million every year from after he retires till he's age 58. Well, $1.9 million looks like nickels and dimes now compared to the money that's being deferred in baseball. But the union signed off on it. They've approved it. So there's nothing illegal. But that money does come due, and it does count against your luxury tax. The years those monies are paid when that player's gone.
Yeah, but it works out pretty well because the deferred money, let me see if I can say this correctly. For the player, they're going to have that. It's almost like an annuity. It's like long-term deal. They're going to get money. And the time value of money is such that $1 today is only worth, 70 cents 10 or 15 years down the road. So it kind of works out for the Mets too. Maybe it's a win-win.
We'll see. You can't have many of them. You can have Ohtani due at age 36. But you can't have 5 guys due at that same year, all collecting deferred money from years prior.
Well, if you're hanging on to your big television contract like the Dodgers and won't share it, maybe you have some opportunity.
XLA, thanks for being with us. Next one.
Okay, let's go here to Douglas. And he says, now that you're a Raiders fan, you could be a pen pal with Raider fans in prison.
I don't know if I ever told you the story. When we were at 690, and we took a ton of phone calls. And because we had the great 77,000 watt signal, you could hear us everywhere. And Steve Hartman and Chet Forty got a call from a Raider fan. And the guy came on and said, "Hey, this is Seth. I'm calling from Lompoc up outside of LA." They start talking. He says, "Listen, thanks for taking my call. I have to get off the phone. I'm allowed only 1 call a week." And Steve said, "Where are you?" He says, "I'm in prison." He made 1 call a week to Hartman and 40 the loose cannons on 690. It was great.
That's Mighty 690 permeating the culture of Southern California.
Everywhere.
But you don't want to call his lawyer. He wants to call Hartman. That's great.
Are there any Catholic churches around here? Would somebody please message me? Let me know what time confession is, because I was truthful. Full disclosure. Only time in my life, former voice of the Chargers and Seahawks. wanted the Raiders to win because I was rooting for Max Crosby in that game at Arrowhead Stadium, and they wound up losing. So shame on me. Does that mean I have to wear Raider gear now when
Well,
I come to
that would be something. You know, if you were, I mean, you already got the silver and black with a little purple on today for the Kings. But yeah, what's your line? It's like out of jail and out on bail.
Yeah.
Yeah. and even when you're in jail.
Although
That's the Laker.
That was the most unique thing I've ever heard.
Raider fan.
When I was in my office and I heard this guy talking to Hartman on the air, and so I'm allowed one call a week. And Steve was making a joke. Your wife allows you only one call a week? No, I'm in person. Amazing.
That's awesome. Okay, let's go here to JMG. He goes, I'm so confused. Why would they extend Darvish? He's old, but he's going to decline sooner rather than later.
Well, he will, but he's going to be 38. But again, they gave him a long-term contract. It's not an extension. It was the chunk. They gave him the initial extension. He's pitched pretty well, but this is the problem you have when you do business AJ Preller's way. He's on the hook for a lot of long-term contracts. I mean, Manny Machado's contract is going to go through age 40. Bogart's contract, I think, goes till age 42. Tatis' contract is going to be in the upper 30s because it was 14 years. That's the way AJ does business.
Well, it's like you have backloaded contracts like with Machado and Bogarts, and then you've got the deferrals, which is, you're still paying after they're done. But, it's all part about pushing the money, kicking the can down the road, right? Now, as far as Darvish goes, I think he's fine. I mean, granted, he's older. He might break down, but dude is smart. He knows how to take care of his body. And I think he's the kind of guy that can pitch into his 40s like a Greg Maddux.
You hope.
Well, yeah, barring injury.
He's had injury problems, whereas Maddux never did.
Yeah.
Very different guy. But again, that was a contract they gave you. It was not a short contract. We added on. This was a lump sum contract. So that's why it carries into age 40, 41, 42. I think I want to say he's got maybe 3 years left on this current contract, which would take him beyond age 40.
Yeah, it's tricky, because pitchers, you're so important. Do you want the veteran? Do you want the rookie? You're not sure what you're going to get.
On we go.
Let's go to Lance having a conversation with 4RXLA. He says, deferred money has been a thing dating back to Ken Griffey. It's a problem now because the Dodgers are doing it and masterful at it.
Again, did nothing illegal, fought outside the box, got Ohtani to agree to it, got Ohtani's agent to agree. Usually when agents say, okay, you want to do deferred? Fine. We're going to tack on interest rates every year. That did not happen with Ohtani. The lump sum is the lump sum. They're not throwing interest on top of the deferrals. So, Ohtani's agent kind of handled it differently, and Ohtani wanted it structured that way so the Dodgers could go get the guys the Dodgers got, and they're going to get this offseason.
So, but now the agent gets to say it's a $700 million contract, and Scott Boras can't say that. And, that's what those guys are always going at, trying to raise the bar.
Exactly. Thanks, Lance.
Okay, let's go here to Emmanuel. He says, so which team is having a worse season, the Raiders or the 49ers? I'm still hoping that both the Rams and Chargers make the playoffs.
Chargers, I think, are going to be in the playoffs, but their offense has to be better than they have shown the last group of weeks. And now not having J.K. Dobbins, I think is terrible. Blow to the offense. Now they become more of a one-dimension offense. That's a big, big issue. Rams are running uphill, but they're 6-6. So maybe there's an outside shot they could be there. That NFC West is kind of upside down. San Francisco's degradation is just because of injuries. They've lost so many people. I mean, all the skill guys are gone. I mean, no Ayuk. Kittle is playing at 50%. Now McCaffrey gets hurt again yesterday. San Francisco's just got so many injury issues there that are just eating them alive. Fred Warner's playing on one leg at linebacker, so I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. So you get to the playoffs. Are you hot? You get to the playoffs. Are you healthy? And right now, there's some teams right now that are limping trying to get to the finish line and to be in the postseason. They got to turn around and play a wild card game, and you're not healthy, so you'd be one and done.
This is where we bust out the Jim Mora line, right? Playoffs. You talking about playoffs?
Well, in New Orleans, they can't use that line right now. They're done.
Yeah. What a mess that is. Okay, let's go here to Darth. Cam Fowler, 24-25 stats. Ouch.
Had not played well. Byproduct bad team. Now, he's been hurt as getting ready to come off the injured list. But he's tired of the rebuild. I was told John Gibson is really tired of the rebuild. he looked at so many shots, and he's had injuries. It's been really tough on both those guys because they're the last of the vestige of what was a really good series of playoff teams that won the Cup, and they'd like to go somewhere else and maybe finish up their career. Fowler can be dealt. Gibson's got a huge contract, and the reports are that the Ducks are going to have to pay half the contract. I think he's due $6.5 million a year for 3 seasons. So the Ducks would have to pay half of that 6.5 every year to get him off the books to go get draft picks. And that's the only way the Gibson deal is going to be made because he's now the starting goaltender now. Lucas Del Stal, the ex-Gull, who's played really well as a young guy, looks as if it's his job. So I like Gibby. Free John Gibson. Trade him somewhere. There's some teams that desperately need goaltending, veteran goaltending. Edmonton is one, although they can't take on that contract because they're up against the wall with the cap with all their stars. Carolina might be the one. There was an incident in a Carolina game over the weekend. I don't know if I see all these videos. The goaltender, Carolina's goaltender, went behind the net to get the puck and blacked out.
Whoa.
He went down, and he was down for a long time. They couldn't figure out what had happened. Is he got hit in front of the net on the shift before, took a blow, and evidently had some sort of reaction to a concussion. And he goes behind the net to get the puck, and all of a sudden he goes face first. Nobody touched him. He wasn't near anybody. And they took him to the hospital, and he was showing signs of a concussion after the fact, which was amazing. And speaking of bad videos, here's a cool one. What goaltender was it? Might have been in Washington. Capitals goaltender comes out, field the puck. So 4 checking forwards coming in on him. Goaltender turns to kind of sweep the puck behind the net, go roll it around the boards to his defenseman. Shot it from the wrong angle, put it in his own net. Own goal. I've never seen that. Week before, I saw a minor league goaltender his team was killing off a penalty. He came up with a loose puck, shot it, bounced it down the ice into the net for a shorthanded goal in the minor leagues. But this guy is trying to sweep it around the board, sweeps it right into his own net for an own goal.
Whenever I think of own goal, I always think of the World Cup and Colombia. And I like the drug gangsters were they murdered a guy for doing a
Brazilian defender.
Yeah, I mean, just insane. But you said earlier that the Ducks are 10-10-3?
Yes.
So let's just pretend for a minute that they finished the season similarly, like right at 500. Could you squeak into the playoffs?
Could be.
That'd be special.
Yeah, of course it'd be special considering I haven't been in the playoffs in 9 years. It's been a long haul. It's been a painful haul. Kids are playing well so far. Have not had any significant injuries outside of the Cam Fowler injury. I don't think we've seen the best yet in Trevor Zegras. I'm still waiting for him to become the true sniper that everybody thought he would be, but he's not been there yet. But Ducks are hanging in there with a lot of kids. And I wrote on Twitter, on X, I said, it looks like the Ducks have turned the corner for Orange Country. That's the slug line they use to describe their fans that live in Orange County, Orange Country. So we'll see. I mean, it's a grind of a season. It's a tough haul, 80-game schedule. But right now they're playing pretty well for Greg Cronin. We'll see if they can keep it up, to see if they can stay free of injuries.
I love your vocabulary, sniper. The way you cook these words up, it's fantastic. Okay, let's keep going here. We're going to do some social media. Hey, let's talk about the Aztecs and Sean Lewis. And this is from Aaron. He goes, this team went from bad to worse as the season wore on. I don't know how you give a head coaching job to someone that is stripped from being the play caller in your previous employer. The play calling on both sides of the ball is as bad as I've seen. Lewis is not the answer for the Aztecs.
Now, the AD has given him 2 votes of confidence in 4 weeks. I don't think he needs a vote of confidence. I think he needs another year. He needs continuity with his roster. He needs another spring football practice. He's got the quarterback of the future. If they can keep the quarterback of the future, and that becomes a real issue here with NIL money. And he made reference last week about tampering, and I'm sure he's making reference to people calling Danny O'Neill the quarterback and Trey White, one of the top pass rushers in the country, trying to lure him to leave San Diego State. So Sean Lewis has got to keep the roster intact. Another spring will help him. Another early signing period, middle of this week, will help him if he can get the right players. They just need to grow this thing. But he admits he didn't do a good job. Well, you didn't do a good job. You can't say that 6 weeks in a row to us in the media and then have fans expect to have any confidence in you. So he's got work to get done. But I'm not ready to give up on him. I just don't want to be here a year from tonight talking about another 3-9 season. No.
Well, you have to give him some props for saying, I didn't do a good enough job. He's taking responsibility.
But that's coach speak.
But still, he's in front of the press at the press conference, and he's taking responsibility. That's good. He's obviously dealing with reality. Now, granted, it is tired. You'd hear it every week. You don't want to hear it every week. He's got to get some better players in there. Do you think Danny O'Neill is the answer long-term?
He doesn't turn the ball over. He's got guts. He makes plays. He runs. He's got an extra gear. I mean, I was so impressed because when I saw him in a spring game, I thought, oh, this kid's overwhelmed. And the kid that I saw opening week against West Texas A&M Commerce, whatever the regional school, he played with composure. He didn't force things. He got better and better. They only had 5 turnovers. You consider how many dropbacks he had this season, and how many times he got sacked. I think he got sacked, I want to say 33 times. He only turned it over 5 times. For a raw 18-year-old, I was very impressed. Got to keep him. Somebody else might try to snare him. Got to keep him.
When I see him on the field, he looks small, like a little undersized.
He's built like a fire hydrant, though. He's thick.
It's the proportion that's throwing me.
He's thick and he's quick. And he runs, and he knows I'm not running over this guy. I'm going to blow by this guy, or I'm going to slide and get ready for the next play. I was impressed with his intelligence. I was impressed with his composure. I've been around Aztec quarterbacks who just threw the ball up for grabs the minute they had pressure, or just led the world in turnovers. This kid was really impressive. I'd give him probably a letter B+ for an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Well, the Aztecs have a lot of other quarterbacks on that roster. I can't imagine very many of them are sticking around.
Couple will, but you never know. Everybody faces some reality. I'm not good enough to play, but I'm on scholarship, and I'll stay here and get my education. Or I'm one snap away from actually being the guy, or moving up the ladder to be the guys. Not everybody is willing to go somewhere else, and are they qualified to go somewhere else? That's another question too.
Interesting.
Yep.
All right, let's keep going here. Let's talk about the Raiders. This is from Roll. He says, say how you said that the Lakers were losers. He goes, this is a soft, lazy ass take. The defense is solid. The offense has weapons. What's needed is what most teams need: a better offensive line and a quarterback. Hacksaw has always been a Charger and a Raider hater going back to the 80s, so don't buy his bullshit.
Well, that's a little overreaction, because you give me the information, I consume the information, I tell you what I think based on the information that I've observed, and you don't agree with it. You've had 2 winning seasons in 22 years. Please don't sales pitch me that everything is fine just because you're wearing silver and bleak. The reality is bad organization. Now, maybe Tom Telesco will be given enough time to fix it. They're going to have a high draft pick. I don't know if Antonio Pierce is the right coach. They have not had legitimacy in the offensive line for a long time. Defense outside of Mad Max Crosby has been a struggle. Awful lot of young guys, a lot of injuries, etc. No running game this year. They traded Devontae Adams. So what are you sales pitching me that everything's great in Las Vegas? It's not. A lot of work to be done there. Voice of the Chargers? Hell yeah, I got opinions. Have they been very good? It's right there. It's on your resume. It's stapled to your driver's license. You're rooting for a team that's got 2 winning seasons in 22 years. And we're supposed to think everything is good because you said so? Nah, not yet.
So this is, again, everyone's trying to figure out who you're rooting for and who you hate.
I am Jekyll Hyde. I concur.
Well, no, but it's funny because you're just reporting on the news. I mean, really, your hometown teams are back east, so it's just funny how the rivalry is with the Raider fans. But dude is in delusion. I mean, if you think there's a lot of positives here, I mean, we were doing the live stream last Friday.
And we watched the game afterwards.
Yeah, the game was on. And right when we finished up the live stream, we're like, well, what's the score? And the Raiders were winning. And we were like, oh, my God, how is this possible? And then we watched the end, and everything went to hell.
And I gave you full disclosure at the top of the football section today on this podcast. Full disclosure. For the first time in my life ever, I wanted the Raiders to win because I'm a Telesco fan, and I like the kid Aiden O'Connell. And I was rooting for them to beat Kansas City. It had nothing to do with the AFC West. I'm a huge fan of Max Crosby, Eastern Michigan. I wanted the Raiders to win. By the end of the game, the Raiders are who the Raiders are, and now it's back to normal. I felt better.
I want the Raiders to win too. I was a Raider fan with Ken Stabler and back in the 70s when I was a little kid.
You're just like the guy who wore 00. That's all. I was so unique.
Oh, who was that?
Jim Otto.
Yeah, Jim Otto.
Legendary. Just passed about 6 months ago.
Yeah. I mean, just so many great stories with the Raiders. Even all the Al Davis stories are hilarious. Okay, let's keep going. Let's talk about the Dodgers-Padres rivalry. This is with Jason. He goes, I agree, Lee. The Dodgers have an amazing pitching staff on paper. This isn't the first time the Dodgers have paid or overpaid for a former Padres ace. The Dodgers made Kevin Brown the first $100 million a year pitcher, or $100 million pitcher, giving him $15 million a season over 7 years. Huge money in 1999. Brown didn't even finish the contract in LA, and I predict the same for Snell.
Well, the thing is, does anybody want a $36 million contract for a pitcher in his third or fourth or fifth year on the Dodger deal if the guy's not pitching well? I don't know if the Dodgers trade him. I mean, I think you have to give Snell his props. He's got electric stuff. He's an eclectic, unique, and really different personality. I don't know what drum he marches to, but it's a really different beat. But the guy has got tremendous abilities on the mound for half a season. His first half of each season in San Diego just absolutely drove me crazy. And what he did the first half in San Francisco was just a disgrace, but he was late to camp, then he got hurt. And when he came back, 1.23 ERA in his final 14 starts. That's about as dominant as you can be. And he's had dominant stretches with the Padres, and he was dominant when he was in Tampa Bay. So the Dodgers get him. I was shocked that he wound up there because I kept hearing he was going to Boston. The Red Sox really wanted him. But he's a West Coast guy. Couldn't pitch for the Mariners because the Mariners got so many young pitchers, so he decided to stay here. I don't know, maybe there's a clause in his brain that says he's got to pitch for every team on the West Coast. Because that's all he's ever done since he came from Tampa.
He's a good guy. And I just like the interviews he did with Don and Mud during the game. And, he strips away a lot of the, you say, talk about coach speak. Players have player speak.
Yeah.
And you hear that from Manny Machado. Blake Snell doesn't talk that way.
No, he's all over the place.
Yeah. And he'll be self-critical of himself in the post-game pressers about how he pitched and what pitch was working and which one he had to, what did he say, put it in timeout. He would do that with some pitchers. But I remember the Kevin Brown signing because the World Series was in 98. The Padres lost to the Yankees. Brown was a free agent, and then he signed with the Dodgers. It was like your girlfriend breaking up with you and then hooking up with the high school quarterback. Yeah. You just felt so bitter about it all, but you couldn't blame Kevin Brown for going for the money.
Oh, he was such a fierce competitor.
Oh, he
my
was.
Goodness. I mean, when I was doing sports talk radio, they sent me to Vero Beach to do my show down at Dodger Town. It was the first time I'd ever been there. I just fell in love with the place. So I'd go in the clubhouse after the morning workout before the games, and he had his own corner of the clubhouse. He had like 4 stalls, 2 lockers. He was sitting in the middle. Nobody was around him. So I just went up and introduced myself. Said, "You got a couple minutes?" And he had his reputation always preceded him. He was just a red ass to deal with. And I introduced myself. He said, "I know who you are." I said, "Good." So "You got 10 minutes? You want to do an interview for my talk show back to LA?" Yeah. It was great. But his whole persona is the scowl and the stuff that he would throw. He was a hell of a pitcher. But he woke up an old man. All of a sudden, it was over. I think he wound up with a bad back. And but when he was healthy, I want that guy, give him the ball. First guy in my rotation every year.
Oh, yeah. He was a fierce competitor. Right? And I remember we gave up Derek Lee to get him, who turned into a pretty good major league ball player for the Marlins. But when you're describing how he had 4 stalls in the Dodger clubhouse.
Most stars have their own corner of the clubhouse.
But it just feels like Barry Bonds. Wasn't he like that way?
Yeah,
too?
But Barry Bonds had a big freaking recliner in the clubhouse. Everybody else is sitting on stools, and Barry's kicking back with his legs. That was beyond absurd.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. Jason, I think, brings up a fair point. Snell might not make it through this whole contract. I mean, because he's already in his 30s, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's had 1 arm surgery, but he's had no setbacks since he had the surgery. And I just think you grow as a pitcher. Now, we'll see what happens to him. And that second half of the season in Frisco is the exact same thing that happened that second half of each of the last 2 seasons in San Diego. You could not hit his stuff. But He's a 5-inning pitcher. He's always in and around 110 pitches. You got to go get him. He wears out your bullpen. And then he has these stretches where home plate moves on him and he walks 5 batters a game. But he also strikes out 9 batters in every 5 innings he pitches. His strikeout numbers are just phenomenal.
Well, I think he's getting better on that. And he's still erratic, but I think he's less erratic than he used to be in the past.
Yeah. He's erratic and he's eclectic. He's just really different. He's wired differently.
He is, and I know he wore, it was interesting is he was a pitcher that wore the number 4, and it's rare to see single digit pitchers, when you look at uniform numbers.
So we'll see. I hope he does well. He goes in there. If you ever tried to buy insurance for your car or your house today, insurance is really expensive. And that's an expensive insurance policy. Dodgers just bought $36 million per year.
Oh, yeah.
On paper, Dodgers pitching staff looks phenomenal. We talked about that last Friday on the podcast. I listed all the potential starters. They got 7 potential starters, but 5 of them are coming off arm problems. So Snell becomes a huge insurance policy at that front of the rotation with Yamamoto.
Well, it's an insurance policy for Snell too, because if he gets hurt or something happens, that money's all guaranteed. So dude is going to cash in, and I'm happy for Blake.
You're happy for capitalism. That's
well, I'm happy for that too.
Okay, next one.
Okay, let's talk about the Tampa Stadium crisis. And this is from Holluck. He says, here's a thought. How about the owners, along with Major League Baseball, build the stadium without tax dollars? All teams in all leagues should never ask for money from the taxpayers. I mean, if my taxpayers help build it, do I get a share of the revenue the facility brings in?
No, you just get the chance to buy tickets at inflated prices in the shiny new stadium that you help pay for. But again, the whole landscape of building stadiums has drastically changed. Nobody walks around with their hand out and says, build me a new stadium. What is going on now? St. Petersburg, they had agreed, Pinellas County had agreed to pay $318 million as part of the whole stadium. It's a $1.6 billion project. But that is for infrastructure. That's for water lines and access and egress roads going into the stadium area. So they're investing in portions of the real estate, which you would do for any capital project. If you're building an office building on a street corner, the city or the county pays for certain of the infrastructure. It's not like they're giving the owner. The owner, Stuart Sternberg, I think, is paying $1.1 billion of the total cost. But now he's got a problem because St. Petersburg, with the hurricane damage, and the city and Pinellas County with the hurricane damage, said, whoa, we have to put in new water systems. Our fluoride systems have been destroyed. We got bridges that have washed out. We can't go forward with a baseball stadium. Our priority list is take care of the citizenry that live in St. Petersburg and Pinellas County. That's why they've backed away. So it's not a case of I'm asking you to give money to the rich owner and just give them the stadium. It's the infrastructure. That's how the modern stuff is going. You watched NFL football the other night, Erie County, Buffalo Bills, the game in a snowstorm the Bills played. Right next door, they're building a new stadium. It's halfway completed. The Pagula family is paying, I want to say, $1.2 billion out of their own pockets. Erie County and the city of Buffalo is paying the rest of it. But that's for infrastructure. It's not a freebie.
But still, it's like Melrose in California, where the property owner pays additional property tax to fund the infrastructure, like water and sewer and all that. And that's what they should do. I mean, you can't put this on the backs of the taxpayers when the $1 million or $1 billion owner gets this posh stadium for his millionaire friends. So I'm 100% here with Holluck on this. Taxpayers shouldn't subsidize these teams. I mean, they're ripping off taxpayers, because how many of them are fans of the team? I mean, you go in Tampa, there's people there that don't care about baseball, and yet they're getting taxed for this.
It's an investment because when the stadium is open for business, the amount of stuff that they sell, tickets included, hot dogs, gear, there's all taxes on that. That becomes tax money, comes back to Pinellas County.
Yeah, but then you make the argument that any company that generates tax dollars, revenue for the city and county, that they deserve handouts too. I mean, where does this end? I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's like, pay your own way, man.
You're unbelievable. You don't enjoy Petco Park. You don't enjoy
I-
Padre baseball.
Well, I'll tell you this. I couldn't have voted on the Petco Park deal because it was city of San Diego only. But if I were to have voted, I would have voted no.
Mhm.
Now, just because of the principle of the matter. But am I happy that Petco Park is there? Of course I am. And I'm going to go to the games and I support the team.
I'll go back to confession and say, yeah, I told John, shut the bleep up too. I'm sorry. Okay, let's do one more here before we put a lid on this.
Okay, it's another comment about the Dodgers and Snell. This is from Edward. He says, You've been glazing Snell forever, but when the Dodgers sign him, now it's a risky move.
No, it's an expensive. And first of all, what does the word glazing mean?
I think it means stroking, praising.
He's been solid, but he's also been highly volatile and erratic. I've said that all along. That's why Tampa Bay got rid of him. They felt he was asking too much money for somebody you never knew every fourth day you gave the ball to what the hell you were going to get. That's why he became a Padre. And he had great chunks of time with the Padres, and he had times that just drive you crazy. And he did it again in San Francisco, and he'll probably do it again in LA. So I'm not stroking him. I mean, this is who he is. This is how he pitches. But boy, he's a front of the rotation guy, and you're probably better with that guy at the front of your rotation than he is if he's pitching against you. No?
This is all so funny. I mean, because underlying all of this is, are you a Dodger lover? Are you a Dodger hater? Are you a Padre fan? They're trying to figure all this out because they're trying to find you in a moment of hypocrisy, right? Where you stroke him here, but you slam him there. And where are you on this whole thing? But I'll say this.
And I slam him. If the guy's walking 5 batters a game, that's not good. And then he's giving up bombs. That's not good.
Well, yeah. And you only go in 5 innings, wearing out the bullpen.
Okay. But I'm just stating the facts and expressing an opinion, but I salute him because he's got 1,300 strikeouts and just a shade over 1,000, and he's got a 3.19 career ERA. So I'm not glazing him. I'm just giving you the facts on both street corners and then telling you what I think.
It's amazing that the statistics just come off of your head like that. It's incredible. But I'll say this, and I admitted this a few podcast episodes ago, is I'm a hypocrite on this as well, on calling out players as punks. But when they're on my team, I love them. But when they're on the other team, I like to criticize them. So what say? But that's all about team rivalry and tribalism, and that's what makes sports fun.
So do you think the Padres should make a run at that red-ass pitcher that was screaming at them during the playoffs, Jack Flaherty?
Jack Flaherty. Well, why not? I mean, and the minute he comes over, he's to the team, assuming the Padres signed him, he would be best friends with Machado. That's what would happen. And so a lot of this theatrics, you could tell they're just sort of playing to the crowd. It's not a lot different than what's going on in the political world.
It's the flashpoint of the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of saying one thing and doing something else.
Hey, we hope you have enjoyed our podcast. We do this Mondays at 1 p.m., Thursdays at 1 p.m. Want you to text, want you to email all your sports friends. You tell them Hacksaw is back. And the reason this has been so successful for the year and a half John and I have been tolerating each other is we do sports talk the way it should be done. And